He is a former Division I athlete and a Navy SEAL sniper. He holds MS in business and global leadership, pitched for a top 25 nationally ranked NCAA baseball team. Prior to joining the U.S. Navy SEALs and after the attacks on the World Trade Center, he got in the mix. He is the owner of Stonewall Solutions and the creator of a nationally acclaimed Fundamentals of Winning. In the SEAL teams, Jason led reconnaissance, assault, mobility teams consisting of U.S. and foreign special operation troops with deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Africa. Upon returning home from deployment, he began receiving requests from professional baseball players, athletic organizations, and CEOs to help improve their ability to perform under high pressure. Using what he learned and experienced in the SEAL teams, Jason developed the Fundamentals of Winning, which focuses on 15 principles of mindset, culture necessary to maximize your potential. Jason works behind the scenes, creating a blueprint for mental toughness and a spinal cord for culture, according to the dynamics of each organization. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow SEAL, and my friend, Jason Kuhn.
All right, thank you all for coming out and supporting the Navy SEAL New Zealand today. Vietnam, World War II, I don't have the words to express the amount of respect and admiration I have for you guys and what you've created with the SEAL teams and what I was allowed to inherit and how that's had an influence on my life. And this is all one big team here. And we have a phrase in the SEAL teams, all in, all the time. And it's a deep level of commitment to team and mission. And what drives that is our trust in each other. If somebody asked me one time, one of the teams that I was working with, how did you manage the fear of death? And I said, well, the fear of death wasn't our greatest fear. You know, any SEAL that I've ever talked to said their greatest fear was letting their teammates down. And maybe even more so was an underlying fear of being deemed unworthy by the Brotherhood. And one of the best ways to be deemed unworthy by the Brotherhood is to start talking. And a better way is to start talking in front of other Navy SEALs. So this is always a dangerous situation for me to be in. But I think you'll find all of us, or at least most of us, are more comfortable in a dangerous combat zone than we are in the public presence. But that being said, over the last 20 years of war, we've had a lot of unique experiences, and through those experiences gained an appreciation for intangible skills like mental toughness and the team-first mindset. And if we can take those intangible skills and teach them to other people so that they live fulfilling lives and build successful teams in a manner that's in alignment with our ethos and in support of our heritage, then I think that's a good thing and another capacity in which we can serve. In the SEAL teams, we have a hierarchy in the way we view each other. And the common denominator between every guy, from the newest new guy to the most seasoned veteran operator, is resilience. You know the guy next to you will not quit. When he gets knocked down, he'll get back up every time, and that's been proven in Hell Week. And what that does is it creates trust within each other. Of all the unknowns flying into a combat operation, the one thing we can always be certain in is that the guy next to you will hold the line. And that trust is sacred, and we don't compromise it for anything. In fact, that's the best way to get yourself booted out of the SEAL teams, is to break that trust. Because it has a direct impact on our ability to perform in high pressure. I believe performance all comes down to trust. Can you trust the habits created in your preparation? Can you trust your teammates, the people you surround yourself with? And can you trust that there's value to be gained from every outcome, especially the negative ones and the hard ones? And building trust takes discipline. Discipline, as it was put to me by one of my BUDS instructors, is doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And it's an action. All actions require a motivation. So desire or motivation fuels our discipline. And desire comes from deep, meaningful purpose. The more meaningful something is, the more desire I have to attain it, become it, or achieve it. If our meaning behind the things that we go try to do in life is for status, titles, accolades, to go home and tell everybody you're a Navy SEAL, it's just not enough. You know, Hell Week's going to get you. But if it's something deeper than that, then you have a chance. For me, I failed miserably at baseball. What Grant didn't tell you, in 2001, I set a record-setting number of wild pitches in a single inning just before the Major League draft. And I still hold that record. I'm that guy, right? So Buds was a path for redemption from my failure in baseball. And when we respond to pain well, we gain value from it. Yesterday, I got to hang out with the Atlanta Braves, a young man who had the same performance issues that I had in college. I used the lessons that I learned in the teams in combat and helped him get back to the big leagues after being out for 5 years, and they just won the World Series. So all of that happening and how it all came together. So, yeah. Buds was a path for redemption. 9/11, I was 21 years old. I'll never forget seeing that second plane hit the tower live in my dorm room, and it pissed me off. I wanted to fight about it. I wanted to go help provide justice for everybody I watched killed that day, and I couldn't think of anything more meaningful as a capable young man to commit my life to at that point. I also really valued the bond found in being a part of something special, like a college baseball team. And I knew I would find that even more so in military special operations, and I absolutely did. And all of those formed the deep meaning that fueled my desire and fed my discipline. And that's what gets us through weak moments in life, is it'll help us give up the comfort of the moment to become something better in the future. But we respond, and we don't waste our pain, and that assigns greater meaning and value to the pain. Just like Sarah's doing. It's incredible what she gets up here and does. That takes an incredible amount of mental toughness. Mental toughness is how we respond to adversity. And adversity is when we meet circumstances that are outside of our control and unfair. And it makes us feel frustrated and disappointed and resentful. And what we tend to do as human beings is we react according to how we feel. We let the emotions dictate our action. And that comes out in the form of self-preservation and victimhood, self-loathing and helplessness, and we start to complain, and then we start to blame other people, to deflect responsibility off of ourselves. But victimhood produces more victimhood. It keeps us stuck right there. Self-pity is a worthless emotion in an effort to win. So what mentally tough people do is they interrupt that cause and effect cycle, and they insert thought and action that produce value, regardless of what may be justified by circumstance. We realize that our response to adversity, we can control how we react and what we do next. And our response will have value or no value regardless of how we feel about it. So we shift our focus. Once we meet adversity, we shift our focus into two things. The process. It doesn't matter how I got here. What matters is what I'm going to do about it. And we shift our focus into each other, our teammates, the man next to you. And what motivates that shift is understanding the value adversity provides in our life. You see, adversity creates a struggle, and the struggle creates reward, and there is no reward without the struggle. And the greater the reward, or the greater the struggle, the greater the reward. That's why our Buds instructors told us to embrace the suck, because the harder it is, the better you get. That's why at the end of Hell Week it feels so good, because of what it is that you've overcome. And life works the same way. It's supposed to be hard. It's the challenges in life that give us the opportunity for the virtuous action that we admire in each other. And I learned this about mental toughness by reflecting on one of the most dangerous situations I ever found myself in. We were at the end of a deployment, and right before the deployment, I had my daughter. Spent 2 weeks with her, took off overseas, and 6 months later, we've packed everything up, and they told us we were going home. Until they come back in and say, one more op, one more mission, to kill or capture a high-value terrorist leader. And I was on a reconnaissance team, so I would go in ahead of a little bit of the main assault force. We would normally have a few guys on our team, but because we were an advise and assist role, at least on paper, well, I had my team cut down. It was myself, one other Navy SEAL, and one of the local soldiers we were working with. We take off through the streets, night vision, city, we get to where we're going, and we come into contact with the enemy. Two guys in the courtyard grab AK-47s, swing them towards us. We shot them and put them down, and 4 to 5 shooters on the rooftops up above them, about 40 yards out, opened up on us, fully automatic. Me and my teammate are alive today because they missed with the first volley. This also wasn't our first rodeo. We've ran our plays so many times we can't get them wrong. My teammate peeled behind me as I was covering for him, and then the rounds became very effective. So I hit the ground and I started crawling to my buddy. And he's shooting, trying to cover me, and he looks at me and he says, "Hey man, stop and go back." So I'm on my belly and I start shimmying backwards, and I get behind a pile of rocks and check our flank, praying nobody's coming down our flank because we've got everything we can handle here. And there's about 15 people walking towards us. I did the dumbest thing I've ever done, and I fired warning shots at them. So they knew where I was at and started shooting back. So we've got a contact front and a contact right. A vehicle drove at me at one point and engaged it until it crashed. And I am trying to break contact. I'm trying to get out of this line of fire, but every time I try, the rounds come in hot. My teammate told me later that he could see him flying just a few inches over my head. And he calls in that I'm pinned down. And in that moment, time kind of slowed down for a moment. And I remember thinking, the action that I take next, if I go left, right, back, forward, whatever it is I decide to do, is going to determine whether I live or die. But the thing to take note of is that the action that I take next is the only thing over which I have absolute control, and that's where I want to place my focus. You shift your focus back into what you can affect. And the stronger your preparation is, the more your mind's going to trust it and allow you to make that shift of focus. You harness your emotions and you channel them into aggression. I thought about my little girl for a brief split second, but rather than letting it fuel my fear, I let it fuel my fight. I thought, oh, hell no, man. If you're going to take me out, then I'm going to take as many of you with me as I possibly can. But I'm going to do what I came here to do. This is where I wanted to be, and this is your chance, man. So wage war. And if you die, at least let your little girl know who her daddy was in this moment and leave your legacy. That's something else that you can control. So I get back on my gun and get back on my radio, and I look over at my buddy. I shift my focus into my teammate. He's shooting, moving, and communicating with me and with a quick reaction force that's going to come up and help us. And when I saw that, any remaining fear that was left went away. So I think, man, you shoot at me, you better not miss, right? But if you shoot at my buddy, now we're going to hunt you down because of how we feel about each other, that trust that's built in our preparation. They get an armored vehicle up to me. I was able to man the 50 cal machine gun, suppress the fire. And then Morgan Luttrell came up to the wall and threw 3 grenades. And those grenades provided me cover to link back up with my teammates. Morgan's running for political office down in Texas now, so when the media starts lying about him, know that he saved my life. I was able to get back around again. I was able to link back up with my platoon chief. He said, "You good?" I said, "Yeah, Chief, I'm good." And so we're going to have to counter assault from a different direction. I want you to go in first because you've seen it. I said, "Roger that." Put my laser up on the gate, focused in on something small, took a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and I let go, lock in to win the fight in front of you. It doesn't matter what just happened. You've got to release mental attention and emotional attachment to the past and focus on the 3.5 seconds in front of your face. Because I'm not the only one going into that courtyard, and it's selfish for me to be anything other than my best before we go. And we focus on each other with a team-first mindset. You see, every day we show up to do anything, we battle one of 2 motivations, service or status. Status means I want to be a big deal, receive praise from other people. And when that's our driving factor, it creates failure. Because for me to be a big deal, other people have to think I'm a big deal, and I'm dependent. If my self-worth is dependent on something I can't control and can constantly change, that creates pressure and stress, and it breaks us down. And sometimes that status-driven nature is not out of arrogance, but more of a need for affirmation or feelings of inadequacy. We don't like to admit it, but we all battle that sometimes. And I learned that about myself in sniper school because I got to go as a new guy. And it's normally reserved for seasoned, veteran Navy SEALs, but I get to go as a new guy. And I get there, and these guys are everything I want to be one day. You know, I looked up to them. And when I started shooting for one particular test, I was struggling due to nerves when I was around the other guys. But when I would get away from them and I would practice on my own, I was fine and I'd kill it. One of the instructors came up to me, Turbo, if you know him, and he said, listen, man, if you don't believe in yourself, then why should anybody else? You're getting nervous because of the company you're in. We need snipers right now because there's 2 wars going on, and I've seen you shoot on your own, and you're capable, but we're not going to be able to make use of your ability because you're more concerned with gaining the acceptance of your peers than you are embracing your God-given best and giving it to the team. And I never thought of it like that. So the next day, I went out and I tried to just let my motivation be in service to the SEAL teams and country. And there were 4 of us retesting. I was the only one that passed to move on. But nothing really changed about how I was firing my weapon. In fact, I graduated sniper school. I got to go to an advanced school, and me and my shooting buddy won top sniper. And I don't say that to be arrogant. My buddy did most of the work. I say that because nothing changed in the fundamentals of how I fired my gun much. All that changed was in my mindset and motivation, and sometimes that's all it takes for us to reach the next level. And I realized that a service-based, team-first mindset is not only a morally good thing to do, but it has a direct impact on our ability to perform. It reduces anxiety to a minimal level, and it creates trust and ultimately love within us, and that affects our ability to perform. If I get nervous before a combat operation, I get nervous for my own life and death. So that anxiety is like a parasite feeding off misplaced concern, because if I shift that concern into the well-being of teammate and mission, then it's got nothing to live on, it's got nothing to feed upon. And when we act selfless like that, we then create trust within each other. But that's the key. You've got to live it before you feel it, and when you do, it's very, very powerful. I give people I work with the opportunity to come fist fight me, and if they beat me up, they can tell everybody they're tougher than a Navy SEAL. And rarely does anyone want to do it. But then I change it, and I say, what if I had the person you love the most in this world, and you had to come through me to get to him or you'd never see him again? Who would fight me now? And everybody raises their hand. But the problem didn't change. Just the motivation behind the problem changed. In one moment you won't fight, and in the other you will, because you're fighting for something greater than yourself. And that feeling didn't just pop out of thin air. It happened by meeting some sort of expectation and a standard over the course of that relationship. And that's what we do in the SEAL teams, all in, all the time, to create incredible amounts of trust and love. And I love my brothers. And that's what brotherhood is. Brotherhood doesn't mean we agree all of the time, and it doesn't mean we like each other all of the time. That's not how a team works. Not even a team of 2, right? If you're married, you know that's true, right? But we set aside our differences to serve a greater and common cause. That's how a team works. All teams either work against each other, with each other, or for each other. Elite teams work for each other. But that's not natural. You see, when things get dangerous and adverse in life, self-preservation is our default tendency. So we have to create habits that are different than the status quo until they become innate in our character. One thing they did in training, they taught us as we would patrol to say, if I get shot at right now, what will I do to support my buddy? And I love that because it can apply to life as well. When things get adverse, when we get shot at, not whose fault is it, not how did I get here, but what am I going to do about it? How am I going to solve the problem in support of my teammate? And man, if we all could just live our lives that way, the world would be a better place. But where I saw this take place in one of the most incredible forms was in a helicopter crash. My teammate, I was on a helicopter. We were going out to a ship at sea to take it down on a training operation. We fast roped onto the ship. I started making movement with my team. The second helicopter came in and crashed into the ship. Fireball. I took cover behind 3 little metal pipes. As parts of the helicopter were hitting my gear. And I got up to the crash site, and I found my buddy with a bunch of my buddies, twisted bodies, in a lot of pain. And I look at my bud, and he's our medic, our corpsman. And I said, hey man, how do we fix you? What do we do? But before he would tell us how to treat the other guys, he started telling us the location and status and how to prioritize all the other wounded members. Because he knew if we took him off that ship, we would be without his medical expertise. So we started applying aid to those guys and get them stable. And we come back to him, and I said, what do we do for you? And he said, I've shattered my hips. And he had. They were broken in half completely in 3 places. And I've cut my femoral artery, and I'm bleeding out, and I'm going to die in about 20 minutes if you don't get me to surgery. And we had used all the stretchers on all the other guys. We didn't have any left. So I started running through the ship, and it's like one of those bad dreams where you're not getting anywhere. And we found an orange stretcher, and we got it out to him, and we got him on there, and we got him on the helicopter. And he's alive today, and he's still in the SEAL teams. And yeah, I think about that a lot because I can still see his face. And his life was on a running clock with an unknown amount of time, yet he still took the time to put his teammates' lives ahead of himself. And that's not a decision made in the moment because you don't rise to the occasion. You default to your standard. And my man was just working the problem. He was just doing what he was doing because selflessness was a trait he had made innate in his character until he didn't know how to be anything different. And when you look at a man and you know he would die for you, right there in that moment, you trust that man. And that trust in each other is what gives us the courage to get back out in the fight and win the fight in front of you. I told the stories in reverse because mental toughness flows into the team first mind. The helicopter crash was actually before the gunfight. My buddy with the broken hips, who was on the helicopter, went down to a rehab center in Florida, and they told him he would be medically retired. But he said, no way. He got himself operationally cleared within a year, met us out on deployment, and he was the same guy in the gunfight with me, shooting, moving, and communicating, and he saved my life with screws fresh in his hips. And I love him. Because he was driven by resilience, he was fighting for something greater than himself, and he had a team-first mind. It's how winning is done, and it pays to be a winner. Thank you guys very much. And thank you for coming out to support the Navy SEAL Museum. Thank you.